Good morning, it's Michael Gray with rnhealthcoaching.com. The following excerpt is going to be a part of my 4x4x48 David Goggins challenge. Basically, it's 4 miles every 4 hours times 48 hours. I started this on 4 p.m. on Good Friday and I ended on Easter Sunday 2020. If you can't do 4 miles, then you do 40 minutes or more of some type of exertional activity, whatever it is that you feel that you can tolerate for that amount of time every 4 hours. It's actually quite challenging. One of my other biggest influencers is Lex Fridman, who is an MIT physicist and has the podcast AI podcast, which is artificial intelligence. And he took this challenge from David Goggins, as well as in between each of the iterations, he did a gratitude journal. So basically, that's what I did is on between each 4 hour interval, I did some sort of a distinct gratitude and made a video on it. So I have the full video, which is quite lengthy, and then I also have these excerpt videos between each one, which is what the following is. And thank you. Have a good day, and mend yourself, move, educate, nourish, decompress, and enjoy this lockdown. All right, it's Michael here with gratitude number 5, spiritual. This morning, my wife and I drove to the boardwalk on the beach in Biloxi, and we did a 4 mile walk together. And on that walk, I asked her if she hears the voice of God. And she gave me her answer, and I thought it was a good answer. She said that the voice of God does not speak to her as a person speaks to another person. And it also doesn't speak to her in the way that the duplicity of the stories that we tell ourselves, or the themes, or the alpha and beta in ourselves, or whatever it is, the one that makes the good decisions versus the one that is self-soothing. And there's these contrary themes and contrary beliefs that lead to contrary actions in our own behavior. She said that God's voice doesn't speak to her verbally in that manner, but she prays to him, and that the voice of God is the leading feeling when she prays, and sometimes just even when she's not asking for it, that tells her what to do in a challenging situation, or even one that she might not be thinking or praying on at all. And I asked if she could give me an example. And the example was both of us work multiple jobs, or 60 plus hours, and she has 2 jobs, and she was praying on figuring out whether or not she should let one go. And she had a list of pros and a list of cons. And of course, some of those were contradictory or contrary. So it was that whole, should I stay or should I go? If I stay, there will be trouble. If I go, there will be double. And she was having a real hard time with this. So of course, she and I spoke about it, and I'm sure she asked other friends' advice, and she could never come up with the right answer. And basically, as her husband, I supported her with whatever decision that she wanted. Basically, I want her to be healthy and happy. And The little bit of extra money is nice, but it's possible that it was a negative on the cost-benefit analysis scale. So I just kind of left it up to her, let her make the decision. I trust her. But still, she was having this challenge coming up with the right thing to do. So she took her time making the decision. And she said that she was in a meeting at that second job at the hospital. And she wasn't really thinking about the idea of leaving at this exact moment, or even this day. It wasn't her intention to go in there and try and solve this or figure this out. But she said around halfway through the meeting, something came over her that just said, it's time to let this go. And immediately, she knew it was the right decision. She had calm and peace about the decision. And from that point forward, there was no further inner conflict. So I asked her, I said, was there something that happened in the meeting that caused this understanding, this change? She says, no, they were talking about something totally randomly about charting in the computer system. So it wasn't something that she had any emotional connection to or anything. It was just a sense of understanding and direction, of knowing what to do. And she said that was the voice of God, because this was a month and a half, 2 months ago. And she has never questioned the decision. She has never returned to the conflicting conundrum that was in her mind about should she leave or should she not. She knew at that point that she knew what to do, and she knew it was the correct time. And there was peace. And I thought that was a very good description of the voice of God. I was speaking to the hospice chaplain yesterday, and I was telling him about this 4x4x48 challenge. And he asked me if doing this brought me closer to God. And I told him that it does. Because not only am I able to hear my voice better, and my first name is Gary, so we can say that for me, just for the example, we could say that the person that goes out and exercises and eats healthy and accomplishes the goals, even the micro goals, such as getting out of bed 30 minutes early before I go to work and trying to get the little 20-minute weight workout and all of these things that I tell myself that I'm going to do the day before, the night before, and then the next morning I actually get up and do it. Let's just say that that's the voice of Michael that gets me out of the bed. And the voice of Gary Jr. is the one that says, you know what, you can do it later on. You don't have to work out. You're going to have a stressful, long day today, and you should just probably try and maximize your sleeping, and you just stay in bed and just press snooze again. And then 5 minutes later, press snooze again. And then 5 minutes later, press snooze again. And then the next thing you know, I'm not late for work, but I'm in a rush, and I didn't have time to wake up and accomplish those basic goals that I told myself, that Michael told himself that he was going to do the night before, because of the power that Gary Jr. had that morning. And so there's that. I get to have a conversation between those two, and I can make Michael, his voice, a little bit stronger, and they can have these conversations on these walks or these runs or these bicycle rides or the swing or the walk with my wife on the beach. And then I can strengthen Michael, and maybe I can weaken the the voice of Gary Jr. that might be focusing on escapism and comfort. And a lot of times I have, if I'm going to have those small regrets, wishes that I would have done something different, or feeling that I didn't accomplish what I wanted to, or that I told myself I was going to do something yesterday but I didn't, then I can blame that on the Gary Jr. dialogue having more strength. And when I do this and I say that this brings me closer to God, or it's a spiritual enlightenment as well, is because I also have those feelings of just knowing what the right thing to do. And it's either a primary or a tertiary guiding light. We can say that if it's tertiary, then it helps Michael out. Or if it's primary, then it's hushed and silenced because it's not used enough, and it helps bring it back out into what's the right thing to do. And I should listen to it. So if I'm able to strengthen this voice of Michael, and I'm able to diminish this voice of Gary Jr. that's self-soothing and comforting and searching for relief from the pain or the uncomfortable. And if I can find and listen to the voice of God, then it's 2 against 1. It's 2 against 1. And then I have the power to accomplish things that I couldn't do before. Because that, we could say, the voice of the devil, the voice of comfort, is quieted. And the voice of reason and the voice of righteousness is loud. And that's what I want. You could say it's selfish. That way, I just have the power to accomplish the things that I want. The guiding light, the certainty to accomplish the things that I want. The gift of God, the gift of that voice, the gift of that knowing. And this is how you get it. You get it by listening to yourself. You get it by doing uncomfortable things. And then listening to what it is that helps get you through it. And that is the rational male, the rational you, and God. And we can also look at if human existence is precious, the preciousness of human life. We will talk more about that in Buddhist philosophy. And if our body is our vessel, and it is a gift from God or the universe or from whatever it is that you believe that brought you here, then it is our duty to live the longest life that we can, and to use our bodies and our minds, our spirits and our hearts and our voices to spread the word of God, to try and listen. And I believe that's what Lauren says. I believe that's what he does. And he's fortunate that his job, his career, his path in life has led him to the synchronicity of all of this coming together. And we can say that my life has also done that. I have always been a caregiver ever since I was young. I've always had a heightened awareness on what my actions do to others and what my poor actions do to others, what my positive actions, how that affects others around me, my mother, my father, my brothers, my friends, my peers, my patients, teaching new nurses. And it's a wonderful position to be in, to have this connection and this awareness and this mind and this ability to communicate and share and grow and to help others grow, as well as to help others through their suffering. And I'll tell one more story about, kind of goes on the same line of this, and I don't know this if I told this story on rnhealthcoaching.com or any of my other videos, but I've told it in print. So here's the story. I've got a patient, and we're going to change her name. Her name is Miss Mabel. Miss Mabel is in her 90s, and she was a hospice patient. But as in many hospice patients, when they first get on hospice, they have a diagnosis and maybe a couple of symptoms, but they're not actively dying. And when I initially met her, neither was she. She was comfortable. She wasn't in a lot of pain. She was still eating well. She was still getting around by herself and staying by herself all day long. She lived with her daughter in a beautiful house near the beach in Biloxi. And I always saw Miss Mabel as my last patient of the day in the afternoon. And the reason that I did this is because I love my visits with her. And I didn't want them to be shorter than necessary. I didn't ever want to feel rushed. I didn't want her to feel that I was rushed. I wanted to be able to visit with my friend. And over a period of about 9 months, we became close friends. I loved her. She loved me. It was as though she was my grandmother and I was her grandson, and this was kind of the role. And this is one of the wonderful things about my job, is that I'm brought into people's homes, into people's families, and there are true relationships that are formed, that are very deep, and they're formed rather quickly at times. And this is not every patient, but a great majority. And this is one of the reasons that my job is the best job on the planet. I couldn't imagine my job being any better, or having more value, as well as being emotionally challenging and logistically challenging, and all of these other things which I enjoy very much, because I'm a problem solver and I like helping people in ways that I don't feel that everybody could. So I feel uniquely blessed to be in this position and to be a part of their journey. So anyway, Miss Mabel, I always saw in the afternoon, usually around 2 or 3 o'clock, and we'd sit, and she'd always have cookies for me, and we'd visit with her dog and her little cat, and we'd talk about her life, or we'd talk about my life, and we'd just share. You know, we did what friends did. And one morning I woke up about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was wide awake. And just as my wife knew that it was time to let that job go, I knew that it was time for me just instantly. I woke up and I said, I've got to go to Biloxi. I've got to go park by Miss Mabel's house and watch the sunrise, which is something that I do on a regular basis, and also finish some charting and maybe start my day backwards. So instead of seeing her last, the aide always saw her first to help her get a bath. So I would just wait there for the aide to come and then I would kind of reverse my day for whatever reason. I was just following the intuition, following the message of get up and go watch the sunrise. So I did that, and I was on the beach about 100 yards from her house, parked on the beach, watching the sunrise, doing some charting, getting caught up from yesterday and starting my day. And our day starts around 8 o'clock in the morning, and there's an on-call nurse until then. And about 7:20 in the morning, the on-call nurse called. And she said, Miss Mabel just fell. She's on the bathroom floor. I know you live an hour away and that you usually see her later in the day, but I just wanted you to know that she had a fall and that they're having difficulty getting her up. And I said, I'm in her driveway. So within 60 seconds, I had pulled up and was at her door in her bathroom helping her. And after assessing the situation, she did not appear injured. She was at her baseline as far as her mentation and all of these other indicators that I look for. She wasn't having any difficulty breathing. Her vital signs were stable. So she could move all of her extremities. So I decided, let's see if we can get her up. And she wasn't able to stand up and get to her bed safely. There was 4 or 5 stairs. The bathroom was like 4 or 5 stairs up in this weird type of an architectural design of the house, where then there was no railing, so there was no way that she was going to be able to walk down. So basically, I was able to pick her up, wedding night style is what I call it, and walked down the stairs, went through the double French doors, and placed her in her bed. And I felt that maybe that's what we're talking about with the voice of God. Just that feeling of being compelled for that. And she said, why are you here? How did you get here? And she said, you're my angel. And I said, no, I'm not your angel. I said, you and I just have we both have the same angel. And I'm like, I said, our angel is what I called her. She was feminine. I said, our angel woke me up this morning and told me to come see you. And that's why I'm here. And so fast forward about a month and a half, 2 months later. Now she's actively declining, and basically she was bedbound. And she hated the idea of a hospital bed, but she was in one at this point. And she had oxygen, and she wasn't eating very much anymore, and she had just slept like 48 hours. And prior to going to her home, I had a brand new patient that I went and saw about an hour and a half north. So I met that gentleman, and when I was leaving, he said, look, he said, my son decided he was going to sell watermelons. So he took the pickup truck and he went and got it filled with 2 pickup truck fulls of watermelons. They were there on the front yard, and there was over 100. And he said, grab you a couple and put them in your car. He's like, do you like watermelons? And I said, yes. The only thing that I like better than watermelons is free watermelons. And so anyway, so I took 2 of the watermelons, threw them in my car, and then it was time for me to go see Miss Mabel. And I knew that she wasn't doing well. So I went down there, and at this point they had 24-hour sitters with her to keep her safe, make sure she didn't crawl out the bed and hurt herself again. And I got on the front porch, and the sitter came outside, and she said that she's not doing well. She's been asleep for 2 days. She's really not eating or drinking anything. It's hard to even wake her up, and it's just not looking good. And you know, I gave her the support that I could and said this is just part of the normal process of actively declining in this stage of life. So I went in, and I didn't say anything. I just basically pulled up a chair, and I pulled the rails down on the side of the bed, and her hand was sticking out of the white cover, and I put my hand in hers, and I just held her hand. And she opened one eye, and she looked at me, and she smiled, and she was missing this tooth. And I say she was a beautiful 90-year-old, and I'm sure she was beautiful her entire life. But she hated the fact that she had this missing tooth. And she always used to stick her tongue out of that little hole in the tooth. So she looked at me and she smiled, and I could see her doing that, and she opened up both her eyes, and she's like, I knew it was you. And she just smiled, and and she asked me how I was doing, and I said, I'm doing fine. How are you doing? Are you thirsty? Do you want something to drink? Are you hungry? Do you want some applesauce or something? We like to try and have things that are easy to swallow and that may have some hydration. So applesauce is good because you can crush medicines and put medicines in that kind of thing. So she said, no, honey, I don't want anything to drink. I don't want anything to eat. I'm fine. I'm good. I'm just not craving anything. Are you in pain? No, I'm not in any pain. I'm good. I'm fine. So we sat there for another minute or two. It was as long as 30 seconds. It was a while. And she said, the only thing that I'm really craving right now is a watermelon. And I said, what? She says, yeah, the only thing I'm really craving is a watermelon. I just want some watermelon. I said, Miss Mabel, I said, our angel put a watermelon in my car for you about an hour ago. And she said, what? I said, yeah. I said, our angel, the one that helped me come pick you up off the floor the other morning when you fell in the bathroom? Yeah. I said, she put a watermelon in the car for you. Let me go get it. So I ran outside to my little Honda Fit at the time and ran back inside with the watermelon, standing there at the bed, and she was just like, couldn't believe it. And I couldn't believe it. And the sitter couldn't believe it. It was just the craziest thing. And we brought the watermelon into the kitchen and cut it up, and she had her watermelon. We had watermelon together. And when Miss Mabel passed a couple weeks later, she went very peacefully and very calmly, without fear, because she knew that even though she couldn't explain it, she knew, just as my wife knew, that it was time to quit that job, just as I knew I needed to get up and head that direction. She knew that there was something else and that she had nothing to worry about. She had no fear, and she was calm. And this is the baseline of what I see on a regular basis. I see this with the majority of my patients. And it's quite amazing. And people ask how I do this type of work, and I tell them that me being in this position, in people's homes, guiding patients, guiding families, that it may be a service or a gift to them, but is also a service and a gift to me for multiple reasons. Because it gives me For one, I get genuine love and gratitude and appreciation every day at work. In some way, if I see 5 or 6 patients or families in a day, multiple times a day, I have direct gratitude and appreciation and connection and friendship and love. Now, whether or not a bank teller or a vice president of a bank has that opportunity and that gift is very unlikely. So that's number one. Number two, whenever it is my parents, my wife, my family, myself, I know that I'm going to handle the situation better because of the exposure that I've had helping other people. And that was important to me. How do you reconcile your own death? One of the things that the Buddhists teach about impermanence. They used to have the young monks, I don't know how long ago this was, hundreds of years, thousands of years. They used to have the young monks go to the burial sites and be with the recently deceased people. And to have that connection and that understanding, that visceral understanding, that tactile understanding, that energetic understanding that life is finite and that it is a precious gift. And when I heard that Buddhist story, of course I could relate directly to that. And it's just one more thing that makes me feel like I'm doing the right thing with my life. So when she had passed that morning, she had, of course, her daughter, but also her granddaughter and her grandson and great grandson, and it was the first time I had met them. And we sat on the porch after the funeral home had taken her away, and I told them the story about the morning she fell, and I told them the story about the watermelon. And that story to them was a great gift. And I'm glad that I had that story to tell them because it was 100% unique and true to their grandmother. And I have had these types of situations so many times in the past couple of years as a hospice nurse that anytime I feel inclined to do something, that I feel an internal direction to move in a certain direction, that I seldom question it, which is unusual for somebody that like me that's exceptionally logical, rational, and mathematic based to allow that voice, that feeling, that intuition, whenever it occurs, to listen to it, to feel it, to hear it, if that's what it is, and to follow it. And being in these unique positions, whether or not it's a self-inflicted, uncomfortable journey like the one that I'm on right now, or if it's one that you spend a lot of time trying to figure out on your own, whether or not you pray a lot, and I think that that's what people are praying for. They're praying for guidance and direction and that sense of calmness and peace. And that is the spiritual gratitude that I was thinking about this morning that I'd like to share with you today. So, all right. Have a blessed day. And we're just going to keep putting one foot in front of the other and listening to birds. and our voices.